The day I handed my parents the keys to their new house, the one I bought for them, my mother Eloise cried so hard I thought she'd flood the freshly polished hallway. "Oh, Salah, darling," she'd wailed, clutching the small silver keys to her chest like they were the crown jewels. "You shouldn't have. This is too much, too much. My name is Selah, and for most of my 29 years, I've been the responsible one. While my older brother Keon was busy chasing one harebrained scheme after another, I was the one diligently saving, working extra shifts, and generally trying to build a life that wouldn't collapse like a badly stacked deck of cards. Buying them this house, a neat little bungalow with a garden Eloise had always dreamed of, felt like the culmination of that. A way to finally give them some peace, some security. Dad, Larry, had been quieter, his eyes suspiciously bright. "Your mother's right, sweetheart," he'd said, his voice thick. We we don't know what to say. Thank you, from the bottom of our hearts." He'd pulled me into a hug, a rare gesture from him, and for a moment all the sacrifices, the skipped holidays, the ancient car I still drove felt worth it. They'd moved in a month later, and Eloise had thrown a small housewarming. "Just family," she'd said, which meant me, them, and of course, Keon. He'd arrived late, smelling faintly of expensive cologne and desperation, full of breezy charm and a new, guaranteed success business idea involving artisanal dog treats. "This place is great, Selah," he'd said, clapping me on the shoulder while his eyes scanned the new furniture I'd also helped them pick out. "Really great. You've done well." As if I were the one who needed his approval. Later, I'd overheard Eloise in the kitchen with him. "Just a little something to tide you over, darling," she was murmuring. "Your father and I scraped it together. This new venture sounds so promising." Larry had shuffled in. "Now, Eloise, we talked about this. Kean needs to stand on his own 2 feet." "Oh, hush, Larry," Eloise had snapped, her voice dropping to a hiss. "He's our son. He just needs a bit of support. Selah's got this lovely house for us now. We're comfortable. We can help him." I'd felt that familiar knot tighten in my stomach. "Selah's got this lovely house for us." Not "we have a house," because Selah worked her fingers to the bone. It was a subtle shift, but I noticed it. I'd always notice. Like the time Keon borrowed my emergency fund for a can't-miss stock tip and lost it all. Eloise had cried then too, but those tears were for Keon's distress, followed by a pointed, "Well, Selah, you're so good with money. You'll make it back quickly, won't you, dear? He feels so awful." I'd retreated to the small patio, nursing a glass of cheap wine. The garden was lovely, I had to admit. Roses were already starting to bud. Maybe this time things would be different. Maybe with them secure, the constant pressure to fund Keon's failures would ease. The next few months were quiet. Eloise would call, full of chatter about her garden club or Larry's new obsession with bird watching. They seemed happy, grateful even. They sent me thank you cards for my birthday with flowery, appreciative messages. I let myself relax, just a fraction. I started saving for a new car, maybe even a small holiday for myself. I was at my desk trying to untangle a particularly nasty spreadsheet when my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. "Hello?" A crisp, official-sounding voice on the other end. "Miss Selah Harrison?" "Yes, this is she," I replied, already tensing. "You don't get calls like that with good news." "This is bailiff services. We're calling regarding a property registered in your name at 12 Willow Creek Drive." My blood ran cold. That was their address. My house. "I'm afraid," the voice continued, utterly devoid of emotion, "there's a repossession order due to significant loan default." "Repossession?" I echoed, my voice barely a whisper. The spreadsheet on my screen blurred. Loan default? What loan? There's no loan on that house. I bought it outright. The bailiff of Mr. Henderson, according to his clipped introduction, cleared his throat. Ma'am, our records indicate a substantial secured loan was taken out against the property approximately 6 months ago with Sterling Trust Bank. Payments have been missed for the last 3 months. 6 months ago. That was just after they'd settled in. Sterling Trust Bank? I'd never banked with them in my life. How much is this loan? I'm afraid I can't disclose the exact figure over the phone, but it is significant. The outstanding balance is in the 6 figures. 6 figures. My stomach lurched. And whose name is this loan in? I asked, though a cold, sickening certainty was already blooming in my chest. The loan is secured against the property, which is registered in your name, Ms. Harrison. The loan agreement itself lists Eloise and Larry Harrison as primary applicants, with a signature purported to be yours as guarantor. My breath hitched. Purported to be mine? What does that mean? It means, Ms. Harrison, that if you didn't sign it, you need to speak to the bank and potentially the police. Urgently. He gave me the bank's fraud department number and a reference. We are scheduled to attend the property tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. to serve the final notice and begin proceedings. Tomorrow morning. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely tap the numbers into my phone for Sterling Trust Bank. The call was a blur of automated menus and hold music before I finally got through to a fraud investigator named Ms. Pereira. Yes, Miss Harrison, she said, her voice calm but firm after I'd choked out the details. We have the file here, a loan for $150,000. The signatures, well, the one for Sella Harrison is somewhat different from your usual signature on file with other institutions we cross-reference after the default. Different how? Let's just say it bears a closer resemblance to Mrs. Eloise Harrison's handwriting, if she were attempting to copy yours, Ms. Pereira said dryly. We flagged it internally when the defaults began. £150,000. My head was spinning. I ended the call, promising to send over copies of my actual signature and any documents I had. Then I tried calling my mother. It rang 5 times before Eloise picked up, her voice bright and breezy. Sella, darling, what a lovely surprise. Mum, I said, trying to keep my voice even, I just had a call from bailiff services. A beat of silence, then, oh, whatever for, dear? Too innocent, far too innocent. They said the house is being repossessed tomorrow because of a loan, a very large loan. A loan? Eloise tittered a nervous, high-pitched sound. Don't be silly, Selah. Larry handles all the bills. There must be some mistake. He's out in the garden. I'll get him to call them. Mum, the bank said the loan was taken out 6 months ago, and that my signature was forged. Another silence, longer this time. Forged? Oh, Selah, you do have an imagination. We would never— Look, I'm sure it's just a silly mix-up. Larry will sort it. I have to go, dear. My cake will burn. And she hung up. My cake will burn while my life was imploding. I tried Larry, straight to voicemail. Dad, call me. It's urgent. It's about the house. Keon. His phone didn't even ring. Straight to the digital abyss of this user's voicemail is full. Of course it was. I remembered when Keon had borrowed that $2,000 from my emergency fund years ago. He'd sworn it was a sure thing. When it vanished, I confronted him. He'd looked sheepish, but Eloise had swept in. Oh, Selah, don't be so hard on him. He feels terrible. It was just a bit of bad luck. Larry had mumbled something about boys will be boys. They'd never offered to pay it back. I just absorbed it, like I always did. Then there was the time Kean needed a guarantor for a car lease he couldn't afford. They'd asked me and I'd refused. I knew his track record. A week later, I got a letter from the finance company thanking me for being his guarantor. My signature, clumsily faked. When I'd hit the roof, Eloise had cried. He just needed a little help to get to his new job, Sella. We didn't want to bother you. We was sure you wouldn't mind deep down. It's all sorted now. He's making the payments. He'd missed the third payment and it had impacted my credit score. This wasn't a silly mix-up. This was them. All of them. 6 months ago, just after they'd gushed their tearful thanks, they'd smiled in my face, eaten the food I brought, admired the garden I'd helped plant, all while knowing they'd signed away my security, my future, for Kian's latest pipe dream. The sheer, calculated audacity of it stole my breath. They weren't just hiding something, they were hiding from me. And I knew, with a cold certainty gripping my heart, that I had to go there. Now! The drive to Willow Creek Drive was a blur of red tail lights and simmering fury. Every traffic light seemed to mock me, delaying the inevitable confrontation. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. What would I even say? How do you confront the people who raised you, who you housed, about a betrayal this monumental? I pulled up to the curb. The curtains in the living room were drawn, but a frantic light flickered from within. My house, my neat little bungalow, now a crime scene, apparently. I took a deep breath, unlocked the car, and walked up the path I'd once trod with such naive pride. I didn't bother knocking. I still had a key. The scene that greeted me was chaotic. Suitcases lay open on the floor, half filled with clothes and knickknacks. Eloise was stuffing china figurines into a cardboard box with shaking hands, her face pale and pinched. Larry was slumped in an armchair, staring blankly at the television, which wasn't even on. He looked 10 years older than he had a few months ago. Eloise looked up as I entered, her eyes wide and startled. Then her expression hardened. "Salah, there you are. We've been trying to call you." "My phone works perfectly fine, Mom," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. She threw a teacup into the box with a clatter. "Well, you could have called us back. How could you let this happen to us? It's your house." My jaw tightened. "My house? Yes, it is. The one you apparently use as your personal piggy bank." Larry flinched, finally looking away from the blank TV screen. "Now, Sella, love, it's not like that." "Not like what, Dad?" I snapped, my control starting to fray. "Not like you forged my signature on a $150,000 loan? Not like you defaulted on it and now bailiffs are coming to throw you out of my property?" Eloise rushed forward, her hands fluttering. "It was for Kian. He needed it. His new business. It was supposed to be a sure thing." "Another sure thing?" I asked, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "How many sure things does that make now, Mum? Enough to make us homeless?" "Don't you use that tone with me, young lady!" Eloise shrieked, her voice rising. "We did what we had to do. He's our son, your brother." "And I'm your daughter," I shot back. "The one who actually pays her bills. The one who bought you this house so you wouldn't have to worry." Larry finally spoke, his voice a pathetic whine. "Kian? Kian said he'd pay it back before anyone noticed. He promised. He's ruined us, Sella. Ruined." He buried his face in his hands. Just then the man himself sauntered in from the kitchen, a half-eaten biscuit in his hand. "Kian." He looked mildly surprised to see me. "Oh, hey, Sella. Bit of a mess, eh?" He gestured vaguely at the packing boxes. "A mess, Kian?" I stared at him, incredulous. "That's what you call grand larceny and impending eviction? A bit of a mess?" He had the grace to look slightly uncomfortable. "Look, it was just a temporary business downturn, cash flow problem. I was going to sort it out. The economy, you know, it's tough for entrepreneurs." He actually tried to look earnest. "I just needed a bit more time. I told them," he jerked his head towards Eloise and Larry, "that you'd understand. You always do." He still expected me to fix it. After all this, the sheer unadulterated nerve of him. Eloise seized on his words. He's right, Salah. You have to fix this. You're good with these things. Call the bank. Tell them it's a mistake. You can sort it out. This is your responsibility. We're your parents. Her voice cracked in the last word, her face a mask of desperate, demanding entitlement. The raw, unadulterated gall of it hung heavy in the air, thick and suffocating. And just as her trembling finger pointed accusingly at me, the doorbell rang. Sharp, decisive, and utterly final. The bailiffs. Larry visibly jumped at the sound of the doorbell, a small, choked gasp escaping him. Eloise froze, her accusing finger still extended towards me, her face paling even further. Keon, bless his cotton socks, actually looked around as if seeking an escape route, perhaps through a conveniently open window. I, on the other hand, felt a strange calm settle over me. The dread had been replaced by a cold, hard certainty. I walked to the door and opened it. Two men stood on the doorstep. One was older, with a weary but professional air, holding a clipboard. Mr. Henderson, I presume from the phone call, though he introduced himself as Mr. Dawson. The other was younger, built like a rugby player, his expression neutral. Miss Sella Harrison, Mr. Dawson asked, his eyes flicking past me to the chaotic scene in the living room. Yes, that's me, I said. Please come in. I stepped aside and they entered, their presence instantly changing the atmosphere from a messy family drama to something far more official and serious. Eloise immediately launched into a performance. Oh, thank goodness you're here, she cried, rushing towards Mr. Dawson, hands clasped beseechingly. There's been a terrible mistake, a misunderstanding. We are the Harrisons, Eloise and Larry. This is our home. Mr. Dawson looked at her, then at his clipboard. Our records show this property is registered solely to a Miss Sella Harrison. Well, yes, technically, Eloise stammered, but we live here. She bought it for us. We're her parents. Larry, meanwhile, was attempting to look both dignified and victimized. It's it's a complicated family matter, gentlemen, he mumbled, wringing his hands. Our son, he got into a little trouble. Keon, seeing an opening, chimed in. It was a business loan, a temporary setback. I was about to secure new investment. I swear, this is all just premature. He tried a winning smile on Mr. Dawson, who remained impassive. Mr. Dawson turned to me. Miss Harrison, the loan in question, taken out with Sterling Trust Bank, is in significant arrears. Can you shed any light on this? I looked at my mother, then my father, then my brother. Their faces were a mixture of fear, hope, and that infuriating expectation that I would somehow make this all go away. Mum, Dad, I prompted quietly, tell Mr. Dawson about the loan. Eloise's eyes darted between me and the bailiff. Well, it was necessary, she began, her voice trembling. Keon, our boy, he had this wonderful opportunity, a business that was going to make him a millionaire. He just needed a little capital to get it off the ground. She dabbed at her eyes with a tissue she'd magically produced. We did it for him, as any loving parents would. We were going to pay it back, of course. We thought Salah would understand. She's always been so capable, so understanding. She shot me a look that was supposed to be laden with meaning, a plea for complicity. And the signatures on the loan application? I asked, my voice like ice. Specifically, my signature as guarantor. Eloise and Larry exchanged a panicked glance. Signatures? Eloise said vaguely. Oh, well, you know how these things are, so much paperwork. They told me at the bank that my signature was forged, I stated, watching their reactions. Eloise gasped, clutching her chest. Forged? How dare they? We would never. Perhaps you signed it and forgot, dear. You're so busy. Larry nodded vigorously. Yes, that must be it. A simple oversight. Keon actually had the audacity to add, "Yeah, Sella, you've been a bit stressed lately, haven't you?" "No," I said, my voice flat and devoid of emotion. "I didn't sign it, and I didn't forget. I've already spoken to the bank's fraud department. They have a preliminary assessment. It seems my signature bears a remarkable resemblance to Mum's handwriting." The color drained completely from Eloise's face. Larry looked like he was about to be sick. Keon stared at me, his jaw slack. Eloise, seeing my unyielding stance, her carefully constructed facade of the wronged loving mother crumbling, dropped all pretense of sorrow. Her eyes narrowed, and her voice when she spoke was low and venomous. "You wouldn't dare shame your own family like this, after everything we've done for you. You'll regret this, Selah. Family is everything. You'll end up all alone." Mr. Dawson cleared his throat, a sound that cut through Eloise's venomous pronouncement like a knife. "Perhaps my colleague and I could have a word outside for a moment to review the documentation in light of this new information." He gave me a pointed look, then gestured for the younger bailiff to follow him out. The door clicked shut behind them, leaving the three of them and me in a suddenly suffocating silence. "All alone," Eloise repeated, her voice trembling with rage now, not sorrow. "Is that what you want, Selah? To be all alone with no family?" I didn't answer. My mind flashed back to countless childhood moments. Keon getting the bigger slice of cake, the new bike while I got his hand-me-downs, his school troubles smoothed over with parental excuses, while my good grades were met with a distracted, "That's nice, dear." I was always the responsible one, the quiet one, the one who didn't cause trouble, the one who could be relied upon to clean up Keon's messes, or at least not complain too loudly when her own needs were overlooked. This wasn't new. This was just bigger, so much bigger. My phone vibrated in my pocket. I pulled it out. Iris. My best friend since primary school, the one person who'd seen the dynamic in my family for what it was, years before I was willing to admit it. I stepped into the hallway for a semblance of privacy. "Selah, are you okay?" "You sounded weird earlier." Iris's voice was a welcome wave of sanity. "You have no idea," I said, keeping my voice low. I quickly filled her in on the bailiffs, the loan, the forgery, the whole ugly mess. "Oh, my God, Selah," she breathed. "They actually did it after everything. Are you going to let them get away with it?" "What do you think?" I asked, a bitter smile touching my lips. "Good," Iris said firmly. "Don't you dare back down. They've been walking all over you for years. This is beyond the pale. You call me if you need anything at all. Want me to come over?" "Not yet," I said. "But thanks, Iris. Just hearing your voice helps. Stay strong, Selah. You deserve so much better." I hung up just as my phone rang again. This time the display showed Aunt Hannah, my mother's sister. My stomach twisted. I knew even before I answered what this would be. "Salah, dear." Aunt Hannah's voice was flustered, laced with disapproval. "Eloise just called me in absolute hysterics. She said you're throwing them out on the street, your own parents, over some silly misunderstanding about a bill. Salah, how could you be so cruel after all they've done for you, raising you, loving you?" "Aunt Hannah," I interrupted, my voice colder than I intended, "did Eloise mention the $150,000 loan they took out fraudulently in my name? Did she mention forging my signature? Did she mention the bailiffs are here because they haven't paid a penny of it back and the bank wants to repossess my house, the one I bought for them?" There was a stunned silence on the other end. "Well, no," Aunt Hannah stammered. She said it was a small bill, something Keon was supposed to handle." "Of course she did," I said. She's very good at spinning stories to make herself the victim. She's had a lot of practice." Oh, dear." Aunt Hannah sounded genuinely taken aback. That's that's rather different, isn't it?" "Yes, it is," I said. "Thank you for your concern, Aunt Hannah, but I have this under control." I ended the call before she could recover. They were trying to destroy my reputation before I even had a chance to defend myself, painting me as the villain to the entire extended family. The audacity, the sheer unmitigated gall. That was the moment the last shred of doubt, the last wisp of familial obligation, vanished like smoke. I pulled out my phone again, my fingers flying across the screen. I found the email address for the fraud investigator at Sterling Trust, Ms. Pereira. I attached scanned copies of my passport, my driving license, bank statements showing my genuine signature, and the original unencumbered title deed to the house. Then I typed a short message. "Further to our conversation, please find attached documentation. I have also just been made aware that my parents and brother are the individuals who perpetrated this fraud. I wish to press charges." I hit send. Then I Googled fraud litigation lawyer in my area. The first name that came up with good reviews was a Mr. Nicholas Wolfe. I dialed his office. This wasn't just about getting my house back anymore. This was about justice. The door opened, and Mr. Dawson and his colleagues stepped back inside. Their expressions were serious, professional, but I thought I detected a flicker of something else in Mr. Dawson's eyes. Perhaps a hint of understanding, or maybe just resignation at another messy family dispute turning into a legal quagmire. "Right," Mr. Dawson began, his voice firm, addressing Eloise and Larry primarily. "We've reviewed the initial paperwork. The loan agreement with Sterling Trust Bank is in your names. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison secured against this property. The default is substantial. Unless the full outstanding amount plus fees and interest can be paid immediately, and I mean today by bank transfer, the repossession process will proceed as scheduled." Eloise stared at him, her mouth agape. Larry seemed to shrink further into the armchair, his face ashen. Their eyes, however, inevitably drifted to me, still filled with that toxic cocktail of fear and undiminished expectation, as if I held a magic wand or a bottomless bank account, just waiting for their cue to wave it and make all their problems disappear. Kian, ever the optimist, or perhaps just terminally clueless, tried to interject. "Look, Mr. Dawson, I told you. I'm expecting a significant influx of capital any day now, a new investor. If you could just give us a week, maybe two." Mr. Dawson cut him off with a curt shake of his head. "I'm afraid any day now doesn't satisfy the terms of the court order, sir. The bank has been more than patient. The time for promises is over." Kean's face fell, his usual breezy confidence finally deserting him. He looked for the first time genuinely panicked. Good. A chilling calm descended over me. It was a strange sensation, like being in the eye of a hurricane. All around me was chaos, recrimination, and impending doom for them, but I felt still, focused. In my handbag, nestled beside my wallet and keys, was a slim folder. Inside, my original pristine title, deed for 12 Willow Creek Drive, clearly showing me as the sole owner with no encumbrances prior to this fraudulent loan. Beside it, a printout of the email I'd just sent to Ms. Pereira at the bank, and a hastily scribbled note with the contact details for Mr. Nicholas Wolfe, the lawyer whose firm had agreed to an urgent consultation later that afternoon. This was it, the moment of truth, or rather, their moment of facing it. Mr. Dawson turned his attention to me, his gaze direct and questioning. "Miss Harrison," he said, his tone carefully neutral, "our records and indeed the original land registry documents show you as the sole registered owner of this property, unencumbered prior to this Sterling Trust Bank loan. Your parents and your brother are not and have never been on the title deeds." He paused, letting his words sink in. Can you please clarify your position regarding this debt in the property itself? All eyes in the room swiveled to me. Eloise's, wide and desperate, a silent, frantic plea mixed with a dawning terror. Larry's, watery and defeated, already mourning the loss of his comfortable, unearned retirement. Keon's, sharp and calculating, still looking for an angle, a way out, a way to shift the blame or the burden. And Mr. Dawson's, professional, waiting, giving nothing away. The air crackled with unspoken accusations and desperate hopes. The weight of their collective gaze was immense, but for the first time in my life, it didn't crush me. It fueled me. I let the silence stretch for a moment, meeting each of their gazes in turn. Eloise's desperate hope, Larry's defeated misery, Keon's flickering rat-like cunning. My expression, I knew, was unreadable, blank, the calm before the storm I was about to unleash. Then I turned to Mr. Dawson and his colleague. Gentlemen, I began, my voice steady, surprisingly clear, this loan from Sterling Trust Bank was taken out entirely fraudulently, without my knowledge and crucially without my consent. The signatures purporting to be mine on the loan agreement and any associated guarantee documents are forgeries. I reached into my handbag and pulled out the slim folder. From it I extracted the original title deed. This is the true and current title deed for 12 Willow Creek Drive, I said, holding it up for them to see. As you can see, I, Sella Harrison, am the sole registered owner. There are no other names listed. There were no encumbrances, no loans, no charges against this property whatsoever until this fraudulent one was registered by Sterling Trust Bank based on falsified documents. I then produced the printout of my email to Ms. Pereira. This is a copy of the communication I have already sent to Sterling Trust Bank's fraud department this morning, along with supporting evidence of my genuine signature and identity. I have informed them of the forgery and stated my full intention to cooperate with them and the police to pursue the individuals who perpetrated this fraud. A small choked sound came from Eloise. Larry made a noise like air escaping a punctured tire. Keon just stared, his mouth slightly open. I wasn't finished. I turned my gaze directly onto my family, my voice hardening, each word deliberately chosen, deliberately cold. As for this house, once Sterling Trust Bank has dealt with the fraudulent encumbrance, and I have no doubt they will, given the clear evidence of forgery, I will be serving you with a formal eviction notice. Eloise gasped, a hand flying to her mouth. Eviction, she whispered, her eyes wide with disbelief. You risked my financial future, I continued, my voice rising slightly, cutting through her whisper. You risked my home, the home I worked for, the home I paid for. You gambled with my trust, my security, my entire life, all to bail him out. I gestured sharply towards Keon, from yet another of his pathetic, irresponsible schemes. You will not be staying here. You will not benefit from my hard work while simultaneously trying to destroy me. You need to find somewhere else to live, immediately. The swift, nauseating drop from their arrogant entitlement to pure, unadulterated horror was almost satisfying to witness. Eloise's face crumpled. She looked like she might actually collapse. Larry just looked utterly, completely broken, his head bowed, shoulders slumped. Keon was stunned into a rare silence, his eyes darting between me and the bailiffs, the cogs in his brain almost visibly whirring as he tried to process that his get-out-of-jail-free card, me, had just been irrevocably revoked. Mr. Dawson and his colleague exchanged a quick, almost imperceptible look. The older bailiff then nodded slowly, his expression unreadable but for a certain professional finality. Thank you for your clarification, Ms. Harrison, he said, his voice even. This significantly changes the immediate proceedings regarding your property. If a serious fraud has been committed, as you allege and are reporting, then the bank will need to investigate that thoroughly before any repossession of your asset can occur based on that specific fraudulent loan. Eloise finally found her voice. It wasn't a plea this time or a manipulative whisper. It was a raw, strangled shriek of pure, desperate rage. You can't! You can't do this to us! We're your family! Your mother and father! I met her gaze, my own unwavering, cold as glacial ice. You stopped being my family, I said, each word precise, when you decided my life, my home, and my future were acceptable collateral damage for his endless failures. The shockwave of my words hit them, palpable and devastating, leaving them speechless in the sudden, ringing silence of the room. The immediate aftermath was pure, unadulterated chaos. Eloise did, in fact, try to collapse a dramatic wilting flower affair that Mr. Dawson's colleague eyed with professional skepticism before I curtly suggested she sit on one of the packing boxes before she hurt herself on my floor. Larry just sat there, tears silently rolling down his face, muttering, "What have we done? What have we done?" Keon, after the initial shock, started blustering, "Now, look here, Sella. This is an overreaction. We can sort this out. There's no need for lawyers and police." "Isn't there, Keon?" I asked, my voice dangerously soft. "You think forging my name on a six-figure loan isn't a matter for the police? You think I should just, what? Absorb this debt? Let the bank take my house because you couldn't keep your grubby hands out of my finances?" Mr. Dawson intervened. "Ms. Harrison is within her rights to report a suspected fraud, and given her clear statement that she is the sole owner and did not consent to this loan, Sterling Trust Bank will have to pursue the actual signatories for repayment. As for this property, given the dispute over the loan's legitimacy against Ms. Harrison's title, we will secure it and await further instruction from the bank once their investigation is underway. You," he said, looking pointedly at Eloise, Larry, and Keon, "will need to vacate the premises today." The wailing started then, Eloise full force. "But where will we go? We have nowhere. Salah, you can't just throw us onto the street. We're old. We're your parents." "You should have thought of that," I said, my voice devoid of any sympathy, "before you decided to commit grand larceny." I turned to Mr. Dawson. "I'll be changing the locks this afternoon. My lawyer, Mr. Nicholas Wolfe, will be in touch with the bank regarding the fraudulent encumbrance. He'll also be serving my parents and brother with formal eviction notices, just to ensure all legal bases are covered, though I suspect they'll be long gone by then." And they were. Under the watchful eyes of the bailiffs, who were surprisingly efficient at ensuring the property was vacated pending investigation, they packed a few miserable suitcases. Eloise tried one last desperate appeal to Mr. Dawson, painting herself as the bewildered, innocent victim of her daughter's inexplicable cruelty. He listened politely, then merely reiterated that his instructions were to secure the property for the registered owner, Miss Sella Harrison, in light of the fraud allegations. The calls started that evening. Aunt Hannah again, this time more cautious, asking if there was anything she could do to mediate. I told her politely but firmly that mediation wasn't on the table. Justice was. Other relatives called, clearly having received Eloise's heavily edited, tear-soaked version of events. To each I calmly stated the facts: the 150,000 fraudulent loan, the forgery, the impending police investigation. The calls dwindled pretty quickly after that. Truth, it turns out, is a pretty effective antidote to manipulative hysterics. Mr. Wolfe, my lawyer, was a godsend, calm, efficient, and utterly ruthless when it came to protecting my interests. The bank, faced with irrefutable evidence of forgery and my unwavering cooperation, quickly moved to remove the fraudulent charge from my property title. They then, as Mr. Wolfe gleefully informed me, began aggressive recovery proceedings against Eloise, Larry, and Keon. Keon, it turned out, had a string of other debts and dodgy dealings that quickly came to light once the authorities started sniffing around. His artisanal dog treat empire was built on nothing but lies and other people's money. They ended up, I heard through the grapevine, crammed into a tiny rented room in a less than salubrious part of town, after a brief and uncomfortable stint with a reluctant cousin who quickly tired of Eloise's nonstop drama and Larry's mournful silences. Keon was facing multiple fraud charges. Their fall was swift, brutal, and entirely of their own making. That snapshot of their horrified, entitled faces as their world crumbled around them in my living room, I won't lie, it's a memory I treasure. It's not about cruelty, it's the image of shackles breaking. They gambled with my kindness, my future, and my trust, and they lost spectacularly. The house is mine again, truly mine, cleansed of their toxicity. I had all the locks changed, had it professionally deep cleaned, and even repainted the living room a bright, cheerful yellow. It feels lighter now, somehow, but more than that, my life is mine. The silence where their demands and drama used to be, that's the sound of my goddamn liberation.